Hi everyone, how's everyone doing tonight? I'm hoping that this video is going to be okay because I run into quite a few technical difficulties, and thanks for bearing with me. And I'm sorry that the last video there's like a little repeat section of, I don't know, 2 minutes, so you're not having a flashback or whatever. There's really a double clip in there, and I'm sorry for that, but that's what I get, I guess, for trying to function on 2 hours of sleep. And I thought I checked my focus. I thought the lens was on lock. I thought it was all good, but apparently it wasn't. So let's move on from that and hope this is going to be great. I wanted to come on because there were some big breakthroughs in the Kelsey Berreth case. So I want to talk about those, and then I also want to parallel that case to the Watts case, because some of the things that came out in the last day or so, I told you guys this case, I think it's going to be full of twists and turns, and I just want to already address some similarities, but then show you some big differences, and then give you some of my projections as to what I think is going to happen from here. Okay, so we're going to go through that. But before we go through that, I want to ask something, because, you know, I'll get people that are Chris Watts sympathizers or whatever you want to call them, and I'm going to ask you something honestly. I mean, not in any way that I just want you to give me an honest answer, okay? Like I said, if you have a difference with me, that's fine, but we can talk about it civilly. I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Because from what I'm hearing, I really want to ask a question. So let's say I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to think like you, okay? So you say that you don't believe Chris did this, or at least there's a good doubt in your mind that Chris killed all three, that he annihilated his family, right? You're saying that you believe he killed Shanann because he observed her on top of Celeste, and that she had already strangled Bella, right? And we went through this in another video, but I'm just going to ask you just plain out, okay? Let's take everything you say as the truth, okay? He comes up, he sees us on the monitor, he's enraged, he strangles and kills Shanann in this fit of rage over his children. Just tell me, please, and I really want you to tell me, why would he do what he did after that? If that was truly the case, just please let me know, put it in the comments, let me know why you think, if that scenario really happened, why would he do what he did after? And by that I mean covering up this, stuffing his little girls and stomping on their heads into little hatches, into oil wells. I can't even imagine doing that as a parent. I mean, especially if I say someone, my spouse killed my children, and I would think 100%, you know, like any jury in the world is going to have sympathy for the parent that had to witness that. And like I said, you know, it's an involuntary manslaughter. People would understand that a lot more if this is him that cares about how he looks and everything than what he did. And I know then some say, oh, well, he was trying to cover up for Shanann. He didn't want her to look bad. Okay, if you tell me that, that's fine. You can tell me that. But then why would he stuff the children into an oil well? Let's just say, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You tell me he's such a good guy. He's such a good guy. He doesn't want Shanann's memory to be tarnished, okay, with that. And it doesn't fit, because if he's going to say that she did it, then he's tarnishing it, right? But let's just say, again, I'm going to just give you the benefit of the doubt, that he is going to be such a good guy, he doesn't want to tarnish her memory, so he's going to just cover this up and hope it goes away, okay, in order to protect her. If that's the case, how could he still put his children in an oil well? Wouldn't he bury them somewhere nice, somewhere where their resting place wouldn't be in a tank of crude oil, somewhere, you know, in a grave out in the woods somewhere like that. But to do what he did to get them into the oil well, I'm sorry, that is not, those are not the actions of someone that in this scenario. They're just not. I mean, okay, but I want you to enlighten me. I really do. Because if you're sympathizing and you say that after the DA's press conference and after the plea deal that you still believe that his first scenario of this, when he confessed to killing Shanann, is what really happened, then I really want you to tell me in the comments why he would do what he did after. Okay? And then for the NK sympathizers who tell me, you know, how could I just not see that she's this poor little duped little girl? And I went through this in the last video. I don't see it because her actions, just like his actions, don't fit that at the end. I want you to tell me why she did the things she did. Okay? And you're probably going to come in here and say, I shouldn't even give you the answer, she was in shock, she didn't know how to act, she was so duped. No, why was she so worried about giving them her phone? Why did she tell him to delete text messages? Why was she doing all of this stuff? Why was she searching for things on the internet and then saying she didn't know about them? Why were there so many lies, guys? Do you understand that is the reason that so many people feel she has something to hide here, that she at least warrants to be investigated some more, okay? Because things aren't adding up, and that's why people are saying it. They're not just saying it because she was with a married man. Absolutely not. If it was true that really he duped her, she had no idea, you didn't see any deceptive actions on her part afterwards, then people would be like, she'd have a lot more sympathizers. She would. And just like Amber Fry didn't have this type of backlash, and it's because Amber Fry's actions were genuine. And they spoke to the fact that she had no idea. So please don't say that I'm just doing this because she's a side piece or the side chick or the mistress, because I'm not. I'm not. I would have sympathy for someone that was truly duped and someone whose actions after the fact matched the actions of this innocent person that was duped. Okay? So that's that. Leave me an answer if you want in the comments. Let me know. And like I said, I'm willing to talk about this civilly with you. Please don't, if you give me a hate-filled rant and stuff, that's going to get deleted. If you can discuss it like an adult and do it civilly, I would really appreciate that. So just give me that answer, because I'm really looking for that. All right? So let's look at what's new in the Kelsey Berreth case, because it was really strange. Yesterday, the 3rd, there was that custody hearing, and I think when I had recorded, I didn't have the news on that. So the custody hearing did go off, and Patrick did make an appearance at the hearing, as did his mother and his sister. But there were no cameras and no footage of it as far as I can tell that I can see anywhere. The Berreths were granted temporary physical custody, and I believe the next custody hearing is February 7th. The mother of Patrick is contesting this, or she was contesting it, but the Berreths have temporary custody of little Kaylee and until the next hearing, so that'll be February 7th. Before that, there will be another hearing for Patrick on the 29th of January. Now today there was supposed to be a hearing about releasing the sealed affidavit of arrest for him. So I don't know what happened on that, but it's very possible we could see that very, very soon if that was approved at the hearing, that it could be released. Now, I should have done this before. For those of you that just need a little Cliff Notes, catch me up version of the Berreth case, I'll just do it really fast. Kelsey Berreth, 29, she moved from Washington State to Colorado to be with her fiance, Patrick, who's 32. He's 32. I saw the reports. Some say he's 31, some say he's 32, but you get the picture. We'll say 32 because that's what I see the majority of. Who's 32. He's a blacksmith on his mother's ranch. At first it was reported that Patrick owned this ranch, but no, his mother owns it. His mother is, I believe she's retired. She was a registered nurse. I believe she's in her late 60s. Her name is Sheila. When Kelsey moved from Washington to Colorado, she did not move into the ranch with Patrick because she didn't appreciate that he lived with his mother. So instead, she bought her own 2-bedroom home nearby. And very strange because they say they are engaged, and yet they split custody like a divorced couple. I have my theories on that, and I'll tell you that in just a second. But I'm just going to catch everybody up first to this. So on Thanksgiving Day, there was a surveillance camera in a Safeway store that picked Kelsey up with her daughter shopping. And then there was a phone call to her mother her mother lives in Idaho, on Thanksgiving Day, where Kelsey said she had no big plans and her mother said she sounded happy and her mother said she was looking forward to getting married. Okay? She wasn't reported missing until 10 days later. And this is the problem. This is one of the big differences between this case and the Watts case, is the amount of time before Kelsey was reported missing. So her phone, Kelsey's phone, during that Thanksgiving weekend, pinged from around Twin Falls, Idaho, which is about 600 or 800 miles from her house. And 2 texts were sent. One to her employer, where she's a flight instructor, and it said that she was not going to be into work the entire next week. We didn't get a reason. We didn't get anything beyond that. That's the only thing that was released. And it just said that there was another text sent to her fiance. Her mother received nothing that we know of, and neither did anyone else. And I guess her mother or whoever, maybe they tried to contact her. Who knows if, Patrick didn't answer or whatever and say, she's somewhere. I don't know if there was a story. We've been given very little information, and I think that's for a very important reason. But, so whatever the case may be, she wasn't reported missing until 10 days after the fact. And right away when I saw the news footage and I saw the fiancé, I said to my husband, he did it. And same thing I said with Chris Watts, okay? But in Patrick's case, the justice was not as quick. The justice did not come, law enforcement did not come in so quick as they did with Chris Watts, because he had that long frame of time to clean up things, let's put it that way. And he had more people helping him, I think. So let's get back to the basics. So they're looking, and he's not been named a suspect or anything, but he's not showing up at press conferences, and he's talking through his attorney. And they say he's being forthcoming, but it's coming from his attorney. And then at one point, they wished that he would come in voluntarily and speak with them. And he also said something like he couldn't make a press conference because he had like prior commitment, and that was kind of strange. So, he was getting more and more suspicious. And then he was visiting a lawyer, and one day the press caught him outside the lawyer's office with his daughter, and he got into this red truck that they ended up taking into evidence. And he wouldn't talk to anyone. Like he wouldn't even say anything. And then someone saw him like at the gate of his ranch, and he was just, locking it, get out of here. He wasn't going to talk to anybody. And all you saw, he made no pleas. He didn't do any media press conferences or anything, asking for the return of his fiance or anybody for information, nothing like that. And Kelsey's mother seemed like she was keeping things under wraps. And then there was a group on Facebook that was started by the Berreth family. There was only one that was by the Berreth family, and everything was very highly monitored in there. And at one point, there was a post, now I didn't see it, but I was told, that an aunt made that alluded or actually said that Kelsey and her fiance had broken off their engagement, which seems to make sense because why wouldn't they be spending Thanksgiving together? And, a lot of other things that weren't making the custody arrangements and all of that. So we got bits and pieces of that, and that was quickly erased. There's other groups that would discuss, more, but this one that was started by the Berreth family wanted to keep everything positive, and people were saying, well, how come the mother's not saying more? How come she's not even talking about, Patrick or anything? After that, there were 2 interviews from friends of Patrick, and they were older people. There was one woman, she was probably in her late 50s. I think she had blondish hair. She was up against a fence on the ranch, so she might have worked there. I don't know. And she just said the same kind of thing that was said about Chris Watts. He's a gentle soul. I can't imagine him doing anything to harm anyone. It's not in his character. All of that, right? And then later on, I don't know, about a week after, I believe it was after his arrest, an older man, probably in his late 60s, and one of the commenters told me who he was, but that's gone out of my mind. I believe he worked on the ranch or had something to do with wild donkeys, I think someone said. So he said the same type of thing. He was gentle, he used to take care of the baby, and from what I gather, while Kelsey was working, I think Patrick's mother was caring for the child along with Patrick. Okay? And Patrick worked as a blacksmith, is what it says, on his mother's ranch. And that's basically what we knew. Okay? And then he was finally arrested on December 21st. They had been searching the grounds of the ranch. They had been searching Kelsey's house. They had found right away a tray of freshly baked cinnamon rolls that it looks like she baked them on Thanksgiving Day, but they were just untouched on the counter. And things that normally someone would take on a trip were there, okay? I believe her purse was there, her cars were there, all of that. Her cell phone was not there, okay? And remember, her cell phone pinged 600 or 800 miles from the house in Twin Falls, Idaho, or around Twin Falls. Okay. They didn't find a body, and we were given very little information. In fact, some people were a little bit like, why are we given such little information? I figured it was because they still hadn't had enough evidence to arrest Patrick. So the day they arrest Patrick is the 21st, after they've been taking evidence out of his house. They took his red truck into evidence. They took evidence from Kelsey's house out. People were combing the woods where her phone pinged and doing days and days of evidence retrieval at Patrick's house. And they also found him in a waste management facility, I think the day before he was arrested, okay, which they found suspicious. Then they arrested him early in the morning on the 21st of December. And the arrest warrant been sealed, but I will tell you this. Let's see. So the 4th Judicial District Attorney said that Frazee allegedly tried to find someone to kill Kelsey Berreth 3 times before she vanished after Thanksgiving. Dan May is the 4th Judicial District this is like a tongue twister, District Attorney, previously told the station that there potentially could be other people arrested in this case. And they did detain Patrick's mother, but they did not arrest her, okay? Let me just tell you my thoughts before I even saw anything today. When I looked at this case, I told you guys that there's going to be a lot of, I think, family dysfunction that's going to come out. Just the custody battle, just the way Patrick's mother appears in court, and just the way Patrick didn't, he's different than Chris. When I say I want to parallel the 2 cases, let's look at the 2 guys, okay? Chris, everybody said, is, so easygoing, soft-spoken. They don't really see him, though one neighbor complained that he saw him screaming and said he did get crazy in a few arguments with Shanann. But that was a rarity as far as people noticed, right? Picked up on. Now, the only two people that have come forward about this Patrick are these two that work on his ranch. Just by looking at Patrick, I don't see him as an introvert who's very quiet. I see him as a real hothead. I see him as someone that flies off the handle frequently. That's just the way, those are my perceptions. Just from facial expressions, from the way he dodged reporters, just from his actions, that's what I'm getting. I would not say he is this easygoing, even-keeled guy. I'm saying that you're going to find a lot of people coming forward and saying he flew off the handle for this, he did that, okay? So he also breeds dogs from what I heard, and I don't remember what kind of dogs he breeds, but he breeds dogs. And he has something to do with wild donkeys. I know one of my commenters told me that about shoeing them or something. Okay, so those, I think they're very, very different. I also think that Patrick, he'd have to be under a rock if he hadn't heard about the Chris Watts case. They're both in Colorado. Now, they don't live right on top of each other. I think there's, I don't know, a few hours distance between them. But I think he probably thought, oh, he didn't have a great plan. And I think this one here, he's probably a narcissist who thinks he's smarter than everyone, and he could tell you where Chris Watts messed up and he wasn't going to fall into that trap. And he definitely had a lot of time that Chris did not have to cover up things. So he had at least 10 days, we know. And then even after that, they weren't actively searching his home for several days after that. So he had a lot of time. Now, my first theory was that he killed Kelsey, and then he loaded up her body, and he drove out to Twin Falls, Idaho, and somewhere along the way, he buried the body, and then he sent those texts from her phone, and then he got rid of her phone. Investigators found her phone, okay? They found it in the vicinity that it pinged from. This is another thing. This is kind of like a Jodi Arias thing. Like, why wouldn't they just like totally destroy the phone? But thankfully, it was there. And then he was, arrested on the 21st. So here's what he was charged with, okay? Judicial District Attorney Dan May said it isn't clear if the death penalty will be sought in this case. We know about the death penalty in Colorado, right? And my theory is right now, if he'll take a plea, it would have to be, really, he's not going to take I don't think he's going to take a plea just to avoid the death penalty. It would have to be to really lessen some of the charges here so that he had a chance for parole or something. I think that's the only way he would take a plea. Otherwise, I think this case will go to trial. That's my thoughts. We'll see what happens. It says Frazee is now formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The first 2 charges of first-degree murder are under different theories of the alleged crime. One states Frazee killed Berreth with intent and deliberation. The other alleges she died during the execution of a separate crime. Just before his court appearance in Cripple Creek, court documents obtained indicate prosecutors believe Frazee tried to hire someone between September 1st and November 1st to kill Berreth. So here's the charges. Count 1, murder in the first degree. Count 2, solicitation to commit murder in the first degree. Count 3, murder in the first degree. Count 4, solicitation to commit murder in the first degree. Count 5, solicitation to commit murder in the first degree. It says the charges, this is telling, because when he was arrested, they said the mother was detained, and because of the solicitation to commit murder, we know that at least someone else was involved there. So they had said there would probably be, or there may be, other arrests coming. And here's what the district attorney says. It says that the charges listed on the court papers also say Frazee, possibly with at least one other person, allegedly tried to rob Berreth and kill her afterwards. So they tried to make it look, and I don't know if that was the final thing, tried to make it look that she died in a robbery. And I know I read somewhere that this district attorney says he did not commit this crime by himself. He definitely had help. So it must be either very well documented that he had help, or the plot, just shows that. So the solicitation to murder and, just the solicitation to murder means they found things. Now here's some things about that case that come out now. They believe, and right away, I was going to ask you guys the other night, do you think Frazee had a, side piece, side chick, mistress? Do you think that figured in here somewhere? Because it seems like there was dysfunction. Either the mother didn't like Kelsey, Kelsey didn't like the mother, whatever that may be. And I was going to ask you guys that, and I didn't. And when I saw the first report that said a 32-year-old nurse, and remember his mother's a nurse, 32-year-old nurse is being questioned. Right after that, I found something about her being a nurse. And right away, my mind started clicking and said, oh my gosh, Patrick's mother's a nurse. Is this someone that worked with her? Is this someone that she knew somehow? Is this someone that she wanted Patrick to be with? Okay, so that just started clicking. And then before I could go any further, I heard from ABC News again that they would not disclose the nature of the relationship, but they would say that this nurse and Patrick have known each other a very long time. Now, I also saw in there that a source, I think it was the Daily Mail, which is not a credible source, but sometimes for things like this, some things leak into there, and I give a little bit of credence to this. We'll see how truthful it is. They said that that friends of this nurse came forward. Okay, this is the kind of publication that pays people for their story. So we don't know. We don't know if somebody's just capitalizing on that, because they rarely check things like Radar Online. They pretty much print anything if it's going to, get them views, right? So again, this is not from a credible source, but I think it has merit. I think this is true, because I'm thinking this way also. They said that Patrick had been having a long time affair with this 32-year-old nurse. And I do think too, because, it's just, why would she even be involved in disposing of this cell phone? It sounds like a couple of other, couple that want to start a new life, and this is how they go about and do it, instead of just breaking off the engagement. So, which they did, but I guess he doesn't want to, who knows, he doesn't want to pay child support, whatever it is, these things that they can't deal with. So then they just sit around and they're like, I really don't understand people like that. Like, yeah, I don't really love her anymore. I really want to be with you. Do you want to murder her? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. And then if the mother is in on it too, like all three of them are just sitting around thinking like, this is a good plan. Yeah, this is really good. I think this is good. Yeah, this is so much better than paying child support. Yeah, because that's something, 18, you could even be, some states you're there till like 22 years if they're in college, 21, so that's a long time. It's worth it to go, yeah, and just, murder and take your chances that you're going to get away with it. You're going to get away with it because you're really smart. Yeah. And it doesn't really, shouldn't bother your conscience that you're just taking out someone's beloved daughter and your daughter's mother. That shouldn't have any effects. That sounds like a good plan. Like, Because, you know, at least two people have to decide this is a good plan. And then the mother being detained and the whole nurse thing has me thinking that she has some involvement in this. So, okay, that I don't get. But he had all this time to clean this up. I think we're going to be seeing an arrest of this nurse, and we're going to be hearing her name in the next day or so. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more that's going to come out. This case is next up to go, oh boy, let me see, I think it's the 29th, I said, right? But I think before that time, I think we're going to probably see that affidavit of arrest unsealed and released. And I think we'll hear about an arrest about this nurse and maybe other people, and we'll hear more about this plan of theirs. So that's where we are there with that case, and those are my theories. But I want to talk to you about one other theory, because it was said they saw him outside a private attorney's, sorry about that, they saw him outside a private attorney's office when he had the child with him, okay? When he got into the red truck and he didn't want to talk to anyone. And I think a lot of people just assumed he was going to an attorney based on what was going on. But now that I'm looking at this case and I'm connecting some more dots, because it didn't make sense why they weren't together on Thanksgiving. It didn't sound like a couple that was in a healthy relationship. It sounded like things were strained. And then there was some news report that they broke up that day when he went to pick up his daughter from her house, that she broke up with him. Now, I don't know who put that out there. That could be something like that close friend that maybe wants, you know, you to think that. I don't know. I don't know who put that out there. But I think the lawyer had more to do with the custody, because if he was going to see a lawyer about something about this disappearance, okay, something about the questioning or what's going on in the disappearance, I don't think, with having his mother at the ranch and he's got his sister, and that he would bring a 1-year-old child into the office. The reason I think he had the 1-year-old child with him, perhaps this was about the custody, and they might have had an arranged meeting with either a court liaison or a psychologist, and he was doing something to get custody. Maybe he was finding out that he wasn't going to get the custody from the mother, not from Kelsey's mother, from the child's mother, from Kelsey, okay? And perhaps they were telling him, you know, she's a good mother. If she's going to fight for custody, you're going to have a battle on your hands. And, you know, it could have been for that too. It could have been for that. She may have said, I'm done here. I'm going to fight for full custody, and I'm going to take my child back to Idaho or back to Washington. Could have been something like that, right? And maybe he was visiting with this lawyer, trying to find out what his options were, because I don't think you would bring a 1-year-old when you had other care options if it was about something, you know, that they're suspecting him or something like that. Plus, we know that when he went to court, he didn't use that attorney. He didn't use that private attorney. He has a public defender. So that's another reason I think there was some kind of custody battle ensuing. Now, if we go back to the Watts case, and if you remember in the beginning, Sandy was being told to take it easy on Chris, because Sandy, like any mother who doesn't know where her child is, she had said, you know, I think he's going to cover them in oil, and she was calling Chris, and Chris said he felt like he was under a microscope. And one of the investigators told her, they said, look, we don't know where your daughter and granddaughters are. Back off of him. You know, like, don't get him upset, don't rile him up, because we don't know what's going on yet. I think the same type of thing was told to Kelsey's mother, because Kelsey's mother kept, and she still is keeping, because she doesn't know where her daughter is yet, right? I'm sure even if they have evidence that her daughter was murdered, she still wants her daughter's body to lay it to rest. So I think they're telling her, whenever she made these appearances, don't say, even if you suspect Patrick that you do, don't say anything about him. say your daughter was excited to get married. Maybe she's playing a little game that, let's just say, because everybody was saying, well, was that the real conversation between Kelsey and her mother that day? Did she really say there's no big plans and she was looking forward to getting married? For all we know, Kelsey could have told her mother an entirely different story. Kelsey could have told her mother that they broke up. Maybe the mother knows this. Maybe the aunt let the cat out of the bag, and that's why they had to get rid of the comment and tell her, you know, mum's the word. They told us to be quiet about this. Don't go out there and put anything like this in. I truly 100% think that's what it is. And they told the mother, just act like you don't know anything. He doesn't know maybe that if Kelsey told you anything about them having trouble. And you just say she's looking forward to getting married. You don't know anything about a breakup. You don't know anything about this. And I think that's why so much has been just kept under and she's not talking. Because when she's in the court, they ask her things. I think they're just like, just say no comment, don't be nasty, but just, that's it. And I truly believe that. Okay? I truly believe there is so much more, and the mother is having to shift the story and shift her feelings in order to facilitate the return of her daughter's body and, you know, help with this case to get justice for her daughter. I also worry about where this little girl was during this murder that they are certain occurred in her house. Now, that's right. If the investigators are saying this. They know this. They know so much more than they're letting out, okay? So, I don't know. Someone had said to me, a commenter had said they had heard that Patrick had ripped out tiles and was replacing tiles. So they were saying that, you know, there was a lot of blood evidence left in the house. I don't know about that. If you know more about that, put it in the comments. But I just think there's so much more in this case. And I think that private attorney had to do with a custody battle. I think perhaps Kelsey was getting ready to leave the area and was going to take her daughter, to which his mother became very fond of because she's, you know, fighting like mad in court to get custody of this little girl. And right now it's staying with, you know, she's staying with the Berreths. And I think a lot of that was about custody. I do believe that he was having an affair. They said that he met this nurse at a rodeo. I think there's some involvement between the mother and the side piece. I think maybe they knew each other. Maybe she worked in a hospital. Maybe, you know, their whole rodeo line is just a farce, okay? So maybe she worked with the mother. Maybe the mother really liked this woman. And then who knows how this Kelsey thing started? Perhaps, could it be that it was a fling, not something serious, and she got pregnant and kept the baby and then moved down there and tried to make it work? We don't know. There's going to be a lot that comes out. There's going to be a lot in this case that comes out, and we know that we've just scratched the surface with it, and I told you guys this, but I do not think we're looking at someone that we're going to find everybody saying he's a great guy. I think this guy is a real hothead. That's just how I feel. We'll see what happens. So parallels to this in the Watts case, Watts had like no time to clean up a crime scene. And I think that yes, it was premeditated. Yes, he had a plan, but I think he had to execute his plan because of pressure from someone faster than he would have liked. And I think that when Shanann's flight was delayed and he had, you know, a shorter window of time, if the children were still alive at that point, I think he would have said, you know what, it's under the gun here. You know, I thought this was going to be done earlier, and I think somebody pushed him to do something before he had thought everything out completely, right? I don't think he had everything in place. I think he was being pushed to do something, and just if he had help from someone, which I think there is some type of assistance in some way, and I definitely think there is pressure in some way to do this now, that with having such few hours, okay, before he had to leave for work, taking so long to having to, load everything in his truck, load his family that he annihilated into his truck. I've also heard, I heard something about, did you guys hear this? That, and I don't know if this is true, that there were hairs discovered, thousands of hairs discovered in his truck. And someone had said that he had to cut the girl's hair because the hair would clog something in the oil tanks. Did any of you hear this? And that would be like a separate charge of, what they say, not preparing a body. Oh, I can't think of the word right now. Well, it goes along with tampering with the body, but there's another word for it that I can't think of right now. But I think you get the gist. Let me know if any of you have heard that. So, yeah, I think, it was a poor plan, a lot of pressure, and then you had Nicole, who was like right on it, and I think he thought he was going to be able to clean up that night, and wasn't going to happen. Now, he did do a good amount of cleaning the night before the dogs came, okay, because the investigators, you could read in the discovery, said they went in the house and there was a very, very strong smell of chemicals, that the carpets had been freshly vacuumed, but they could have also been freshly shampooed, okay? I'm sure he knew that the dogs were coming. And I know somebody said they were search and rescue dogs, or somebody said in the comments, but no, I went back and checked. They were rescue dogs, but there were specific dogs that were trained cadaver dogs in there. So yes, it's both. And so maybe you heard rescue, but there were specific cadaver dogs that went in the house. And yeah, so he had that time to clean up. Someone had said he went in and made the girls' beds, and that he had a bunch of dirty laundry. This is what I couldn't understand. The investigator said that after he had that whole night, right, where he was washing stuff and he made up the girls' beds, and I guess he made up their bed, that he was still in the laundry room digging through dirty laundry. And we know Shanann was like right on that. And even when you saw like photos of the house, you didn't see big piles of dirty laundry. So what was he like digging through and laundering? And then they told him he had to go outside, and that's when you saw him giving that interview with that dog barking, those dogs. That was just like, that would I don't even know how the woman from the press, I'd be like, wow, dogs are barking. I would have, neither one mentioned it, and he just kept going on doing the interview. But I was like, wow, okay. So, that whole thing is very different. And I think Patrick has an even bigger family component, because remember, he's living with the mother. Now, that could be because the mother was divorced. I don't know what the timeline is with this ranch, if he always helped her, but you would think that if he had to, like if they have this land and they were going to have this farm together, that's not so out of the ordinary. It's not. I live in an area where there's a lot of farms, and you do have families living on the same farm, okay? They normally have their own house, but it's not unusual that, there's either a mother or father. If the father dies, like I have a farmer down the road, his father just died, but his mother lives there, and he lives in another house right directly across from his mother on this farm with his family. So that's very, very, very common here, okay? That, I wouldn't say speaks to the family dynamic, but why isn't Kelsey live? Like, why doesn't she feel comfortable to live? That's what I'm saying. There's definitely, it doesn't sound like a healthy relationship. Sounds like something went amiss somewhere, and we're going to see exactly what that is. But I definitely believe that 32-year-old nurse is in a romantic relationship with Patrick. And more is going to come out. I think we're going to see an arrest in that, because if they're saying what they are and she did dispose of that cell phone, she's an accomplice. So she's going to be arrested. And I think they're just waiting to get everything that they need for the warrant. And then we'll probably see arrest, I would say maybe tonight, tomorrow. I think we will see an arrest and we'll have her name released. But that was breaking news on that. And, you know, they said I saw somebody had a theory about how they might have found this woman. Well, obviously, if they're doing enough digging and if he's in this long time relationship with her, I'm sure they found messages and everything, you know, between them that would give them a name where they could question someone. But someone said perhaps they found her because she had her cell phone on her when she was doing this, and they searched all these records in the area to see whose phone pinged at these locations that they pinged Kelsey's phone on. So that's an interesting concept. So we'll have to see what happens there. I think a lot is going to come out, and I think we'll see parallels to the Watts case, but I think we're also going to see very different things where he had a lot of time to clean up. He had a lot of time to cover his tracks. He had a lot of time to do things. And he's not in a marriage. We're hearing it's an engagement, but like I said, that can just be all a cover-up that the investigators are telling Kelsey's mom not to say anything about a breakup. So we're going to see a much more complicated relationship dynamic, custody dynamic. I really think that private attorney had something to do with custody, because why would he be bringing the child with him? So I really think that is the case there. And those are my thoughts. We'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on this case, because this is unfolding and we're going to see more unfold as we get to the January 29th, because that's what the prosecutors were saying. They were saying that more information would be coming out and we would be learning more about the case. And I imagine that's going to be after they have another arrest or two, that we'll hear more. Okay, and then did I want to say anything else? Trying to think if there were any other parallels that I saw there, but just, yeah, I mean, he being in Colorado and seeing this, just wondering about that. And I don't know if you guys heard this in the Watts case. I heard something of an interview from an attorney that came forward during the investigation, and it was just an audio interview. And he apparently met Shanann and a good friend from North Carolina. He thinks around April of 2018. And they were at hibachi, Mount Fuji hibachi, where they sit several people at a hibachi table. And he is an attorney originally from Nigeria, but he went to college and law school in the United States. He was married and divorced, and then he got remarried, and he made this big deal about this boy he had with his wife. But he was a very nice guy, very cordial guy, and he really liked this Mount Fuji hibachi place. And he said that they were one of the last tables, and he and his wife sat down, and then Shanann and her friend came down, and then one other couple, a woman and her son from Minnesota, I believe it was, or Minnesota or Michigan. And he said Shanann was so sweet, smile never left her face, and he said they just started talking, and it was funny, he said, because she said, this is my friend, she's visiting from North Carolina, and he had lived in Charlotte, and so the friend that was visiting lived about an hour away. He said the name of the town, I don't remember it, and they were chatting and having a great time, and then he mentioned something about being an attorney, or she said, you're an attorney? And he said, yes, I handle everything but like divorce of family law. And then she started asking him some questions about custody in the state of Colorado, and that if there was a divorce, could, children be given to the father if, like, she would move back to North Carolina or something. Like, she was just asking, like, kind of general questions. And he knew a lot about her because he said, you know, she had explained that she had lupus, and she was on bed rest for one of the pregnancies, but then yet talked about her husband wanting a son, and that she would be willing to do that one time because he did want a son. And he said, you know, that's really commendable to you, because if you had such a bad time, you know, you're really great to do that. And she said, well, yes, he wants a son. And, you know, as they walked out, he gave her his number. He said, anytime you have a question about any type of the law, you know, I could even put you in touch with somebody if you have questions. But she didn't ask, you know, specifically didn't say for herself. She was asking kind of general questions. And he said that he liked, you know, Dateline, NBC, and 48 Hours, and those kinds of shows. And they were on his DVR, and he was down in his family room one night, and he said he had a bunch of stuff stored up, and he usually just puts it on and lets it play. And he said, you know, he had a big 65-inch TV, and he said her face just came up on there, and he just started screaming. He couldn't believe it because, and the things he remembered a lot of things. Like he just said they had a really, really great time. His wife, you know, and he just started screaming for his wife, and he said, come down here. Do you recognize her? Do you recognize her? And she said, I do. I can't. Don't you remember from the hibachi place? And then she was like, yes. And he was like really, really upset. And guess what? And this just goes to show you about an innocent person. He went right to the police. He said, you know, this may be nothing. It may be something. But she was a very sweet girl. She was genuine. She was just smile. Here's what he kept saying. Smile never left her face. Never left her face. He said, and I just have to come down here and I have to tell you. It might not be anything. It might be something. But I'm going to tell you. And he did. And that, I mean, is somebody that met her at a hibachi table. Okay? That's not someone that says, now you might even say, well, he could, maybe he, you know, he had to process something like, is this useful or is not? But when you're talking about somebody like the mistress, and you're saying that she has to process and she doesn't realize that her information is very pertinent to the case and she should have gone immediately, then you're looking at some guy that met her in a hibachi place. And if you listen to his interview, he has more feeling, more emotion, more, I want to help you guys any way I can. I want to help you guys. And that's what I mean, guys. That is what I mean. Her actions do not reflect that of someone that's innocent. And that's all I'm going to say. And I'll leave you with that. Like I asked you those questions in the beginning. If you want to give me a civil answer to them, go ahead. And, I mean, I'm a pretty rational person. It's not that some people say, well, do you have an open mind? Of course I have an open mind. Yes, and my open mind saw this because that's how I look at a case. I didn't know any of these people personally when this case happened. So, yes, I looked at it with a very open mind, and these are my feelings with an open mind. The same way this Frazee case. And I'll take you through all of this, the Frazee case, and let you know my thoughts, and we'll see what happens. But, you know, that's what I feel. That's what I feel. And that's what I can talk. I can't tell you how you feel. That's why I'm asking you. How do you feel? How do you feel? What makes you say this? Well, how do you explain this? And just, you know, let me know. But anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go because I don't even know how long we've been here, and my videos run long, and I'm sorry about that. And you already had a long one today, and I apologize so much for all the technical difficulty in that again. And I hope that this one is okay, and really, fingers crossed. So I will talk to you guys very soon. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Go out and have fun with your family and your friends. Enjoy life because life is short. And I will talk to you all soon. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for all of your support. I so truly appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye-bye.